Hello Mayhem Makers, I'm Mindy with Quilting Mayhem. Welcome back to the Beyond Squares Sew Along. We are now at week 6 and we're going to be working on the Shoefly block and the quarter square triangle block this time. So we're going to start with the super simple Shoefly. It's really just some half square triangles and some squares. So gather up your 3" of your background and a medium fabric. If you're doing kits, it'll tell you your colors. Otherwise, if you're doing your own, just your backgrounds and whatever medium you want for this block. It's just a 2-color block. And then your 2.5 square of background, you're going to need 4 of those and 1 of the color that you're using. So gather those up and we're going to be right back and show you how to do this block. Alright, so these are all the fabrics we need for this block. I'm taking away the ones that we're not going to work with for the half square triangles, so you just need 2 of your color, 2 of your background. We're going to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of each background square. I love half square triangles, they're super easy to do. And once the line is on there, I'm going to put these right sides together and line them up nice and pretty. Once I get to my machine, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on either side of this diagonal line on my machine. Cut them apart, press them open, and I will be right back. We'll show you how the block will come together. Alright, so those 2 squares gave us 4 half square triangles. And if you know me, you know I'm going to tell you need to make sure that you trim these up. They need to be 2.5 inches, so I'm just using my little 4.5 square creative grid and laying the diagonal line on the ruler on the diagonal seam line. And I'm just kind of centering it so I can clean up all 4 sides. Get all those dog ears off. Make them all nice and pretty. And then just line up the 2.5 on the side that I just cleaned. So now it's going to match the size of our other squares. So you're going to do this to all 4 of them, and then we'll lay out our Shoefly block and show you how to put it together. Alright, so we have 4 cleaned up half square triangles, and they all need to face inward. And then you have your matching color square. It's going to be your center. And then these backgrounds. So pretty simple to put together. This is now essentially what you would call a 9-patch block. And I just am going to sew them together. So I'm going to pair these guys up and sew them, and then put on that 3rd unit. Press open all my seams is how I would do it. Otherwise, if you like pressing one way, most likely it would be easier to press potentially towards your background, unless you're concerned that it's going to show too much behind a lighter background. Then of course you want to press towards your colored fabric so that it doesn't show. And then you're just going to make these into rows and put your rows together. So I'm going to take it to the machine and we'll be back and show you what the finished block looks like. So this is what your rows will look like once you've put them together. And then you just work your way, putting row 1 and 2 together. I like to pin my seams just so they don't shift on me while I'm sewing, and everything comes out nice and even in the end. So I'm just going to match these 2 seams together, pin, go to my machine, do my 1/4 inch seam, sew them together, and then I'll sew the bottom one on and press everything, and I'll be right back. All right, so here we have our happy little Shoefly block all done and ready, and matches up to the 6.5 square it's supposed to be. So we're happy. And also this week we are just going to keep on moving along. We're going to work on next the quarter square triangles. Keep you guys rolling in this quilt because a lot of these blocks are super simple. So I'm doubling up just so we can get your quilt done in a timely manner. I hate dragging things out. So you want 2 different color fabrics and 2 different of your background square. These are 7.5 inch squares. And what we're starting with is, of course, once again, the half square triangle method. Super simple. I'm gonna move my color fabrics out of the way for these. I need one of my bigger rulers. So I'm just grabbing my 6.5 by 12.5. And of course, you can never have too many rulers. I have lots. Line up on the diagonal, use your friction marker, draw your diagonal lines on all your backgrounds. For this, I'm just doing the 2 different colors to show how to make one, and of course you're going to make all the ones you need for your quilt. So one of these is going to go right sides together on my darker fabric, and one's going to go right sides together on this more medium color fabric. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. We're going to sew the 1/4 inch on either side of the line. I'm going to cut it apart, press it open, and then I'll be right back and show you what the next step is. So we're back. We have our 2 half square triangles of the 2 different colors. So we need 1 of each for the next step. To make a 1/4 square triangle, you're going to lay them on top of each other, matching your seam lines on top of each other, and you want them essentially opposing. So your color fabric here, your background here, and the opposite is your colors here, and your backgrounds here. I like to kind of line up my diagonals and my corners, and then I actually put a little pin in there once I get them nice and lined up, and I kind of peek so that I have my seams lined up as best as possible. And I just put a pin kind of at each end, because what's going to happen is we're going to draw another diagonal line with our lovely, actually, I'm going to use the pink one because I've got this dark fabric. So draw a diagonal line now this way, and we're going to repeat the same process we did with the half square triangle. So I'm going to sew 1/4 inch either side, cut it apart, press it open, and the end result will be a 1/4 square triangle. One thing to note is these half square triangles, you don't actually have to trim them, so be thankful. We won't trim until the very end, so it really doesn't matter if they're a little bigger. It just means we'll have a little more to trim after we make our 1/4 square triangles. So line them up, draw your lines, and get ready to go sew your seams. We'll be right back. All right, so now we have our 1/4 square triangle blocks. You get 4 out of them out of that. We just need to trim them up to 6.5 square. So I have my trusty Creative Grids 6.5 square ruler. The trick for this, to try to get it as much with your diagonals on the corners as you can. Sometimes they get a little wonky when you make them. So we're going to get as close as we possibly can. I have the diagonal that's already on the ruler on one diagonal seam line, and then I'm just going to keep shifting it until I get the opposing points on the other diagonal line going through the other way. Once I get it as lined up and happy as I can be, I will trim. And yes, you have to trim these. Can't leave them all wonky with dog ears. So trim the 2 sides, turn it, line up the 2 trimmed edges with the left and the bottom, and trim the other side. And now you'll have your 6.5 inch square, and my points are actually pretty much dead on. This one's a little, but you know what? Close enough. Once you do your 1/4 inch seam, it should be right nice dead on in that point. So just trim all of them up when you're done. I can show you again just in case you need a redo on that guy. So this diagonal line through here, and I'm just going to keep shifting it. I'm pulling it towards me a little bit to try to line up these two corners on this diagonal line. Once I'm happy, press down firmly, keep your fingers away from the edge. You don't want to lose your fingertips. That's not fun. Turn, and then just square up your other two sides. And done. So once again, ooh, we got pretty dead on there. So I'm happy. My centers meet right in the middle. This is a good quarter square triangle block. It's one of my favorites because it's a lot of fun to do. It's really pretty simple. So I always enjoy a pattern that has it in it. So this was your homework for this week, your Shoefly block and your quarter square triangle blocks. Make sure you get them all done. And we'll be back next week for the final block, and then we'll have assembly. So we're almost there. Hang tight and happy stitching.